Hey guys, I wanted to go over the lace pattern that we're using in the Tealeaf knit along. I know a lot of you had some questions on how to do it and we're struggling a little bit, so I thought we could just go over it row by row and look at each of the stitches and kind of talk through it that way. The first thing you need to do is cast on 32 stitches. That's the same number of stitches you're casting on for your pocket lining. This lace swatch won't be used in the sweater, it's just a swatch, but you're still going to cast on 32 stitches. I have cast on 32 stitches and then I went ahead and purled my first row. I find it a lot easier to work lace once I've already worked a row of stitches instead of trying to do the lace into the cast on edge. We're going to be working from the flat lace pattern. There are also two round charts which we'll use when we get to the sleeves of the sweater, but for now you only need to worry about the flat chart. We're going to talk through this and it'll be the same whether you're looking at the chart or the written directions. They both mean the same thing, so use whichever one you're more comfortable with, and I'm also going to be using stitch markers to show you where the repeats are, which can be really helpful when you're starting out in lace. So this is a 6-stitch repeat and there are 4 stitches on either end. So if you're wondering why 32 stitches, we're doing 4 repeats of the 6-stitch repeat and then we have 4 extra stitches at either end just to balance out the pattern. So let's get started with row 1. We're going to work our first 4 stitches. So the first is a purl. I'm going to purl 1. I'm going to purl 2. And then we have a yarn over. And I do my yarn overs according to the nerd knitting tip that was at the end of the video. The reason you would do the yarn over this way instead of a regular yarn over is that we have yarn overs that are coming from a purl to a knit, and then we'll also have yarn overs that are going from a knit to a purl. So when you wrap the yarn these different ways, it makes those yarn overs more similarly sized. So to do the nerd knitting yarn over, when we're going from a purl to what's going to be knit stitches on this side here, bring your yarn under your right needle to the back, over the top of the needle, and to the back again. So it feels like a lot of wrapping, but you still just have 1 stitch created here on your needle. So we've purled 1, we've purled 2, we've done our yarn over. Now we're going to do an SSK, which means slip, slip, knit. So slip the first stitch knitwise, slip the second stitch knitwise, and then we're going to put the left needle through the front legs of both stitches, which is essentially the same as knitting through the back loop of these stitches, and we're going to knit them together. And those are the first 4 stitches are edge stitches, so we're going to mark those by putting a stitch marker on, and then we're going to start our 6-stitch repeat. So the first thing we do in this red box, which marks our 6 stitches, is knit 2 together. So to do that, we're starting with the furthest stitch to the left, and we're going through the stitch knitwise, and then we're going through the second stitch knitwise too. So it goes through both stitches. Wrap your yarn around and pull through 1 loop. So that's created, that's a decrease. You have just 1 stitch there, but we're going to use yarn overs in this row to balance out those decreases. So we always have the same number of stitches on our row. We will always have 32 stitches. So we've knit 2 together, and next we need to do a yarn over. And this is one of the yarn overs where we're going from a knit to what will be a purl stitch. So to do this yarn over, bring your yarn under the needle, over the top, and back to the front. And again, it feels like a lot of wrapping, but you just have 1 loop around your needle. All right, then we're going to purl 1, purl 2, then we're doing the yarn over where we're going from a purl to a knit, so we need to bring the yarn to the back, over the top and to the back again, and then we do a slip, slip, knit. Oops, don't catch your other stitch there. Don't split your stitches. Let me do that guy again. Sometimes this yarn can be a little splitty, so if you're struggling with that, you are not alone. Okay, so we're going to knit these 2 together. And that's the end of the 6-stitch repeat that we're working on this row. So as you can see, we have our knit 2 together, yarn over, purl 1, purl 2, yarn over, SSK, and that's 6 stitches. So we'll mark that repeat, and we'll start the repeat from the beginning again. So we're going to knit 2 together, yarn over, so bring it under, over the top to the front, purl 1, purl 2, yarn over, and slip, slip, knit. And that is again 6 stitches. So we'll mark that repeat and we'll start the repeat over one more time. So knit 2 together, yarn over, purl 1, purl 2, yarn over, slip, slip, knit 2 together. And again, that is the end of our 6 stitch repeat. So we're going to place a marker and we're going to do the repeat again. Same thing. Knit 2 together, yarn over, purl 1, purl 2, yarn over, slip, slip, knit. And that's the end of the 6 stitches. And then you'll see we have 4 stitches left on our needle, which is exactly what we should have. These are the 4 stitches that aren't part of the 6 stitch repeat. These are our 4 edge stitches. So we're going to work these last 4 stitches according to the chart or the written directions. You're going to knit 2 together, yarn over, purl 1, and purl 2. All right, so you've completed the first row. Now let's work the second row and see how we handle those yarn overs. So again, we have our 4 edge stitches before we get to the repeat. So let's start working those. We're going to knit 1, knit 2, and then we're going to purl the next stitch. And this stitch looks a little funny. This was our yarn over. This yarn over, the right leg is in the front. You can just go ahead and purl that like normal. You can see that makes a hole in the fabric, which is what it should do. And then we're going to purl our next stitch and slide our stitch marker, and now we're starting our 6 stitch repeat. So to do this, we're going to purl 1. Now this next yarn over, this is the one that we wrapped a little strangely, so that it would be the same size as our other yarn over, but you can see the back leg is kind of in the front here. So in order to work this yarn over so that we don't close it and we maintain its hole, we're going to go through the back leg. So you're just kind of going right to left, back to front here. Wrap your yarn around it and purl, and you can see that one is still a hole too. Then we're going to knit 2, and purl that yarn over, purl the next stitch, and that is our 6 stitch repeat. So go ahead and slide your stitch marker and do it all again. Purl 1, purl this funny yarn over through the back loop, knit 2, and purl 2, and purl this yarn over normally, purl this stitch normally. Slide your stitch marker and do it again. Purl 1, purl through the back loop of this yarn over, knit 1, 2, purl this yarn over normally, purl the next stitch, and that is another stitch repeat completed. You can see we still have 6 stitches between our stitch markers. Slide that stitch marker, purl 1, purl that yarn over through the back loop, knit 1, knit 2, purl that yarn over normally, purl 1, slide your stitch marker, and then we're on to our last 4 stitches that aren't part of the stitch repeat. So we're going to purl 1, purl 2, knit 1, knit 2. All right, so now let's look at row 3. This is where we're going to work those double yarn overs, which are a little bit tricky, but we'll just kind of talk through them, do them together, and I'm sure they won't be a problem for you. This row, like all the others, will still have 32 stitches. We'll still have 6 stitches in our repeats. Nothing there is actually changing. The only thing that's a little tricky is the first half of our double yarn over is going to fall on the right side of the stitch marker, and then the other half of it is the first stitch of our 6 stitch repeat, so they'll be right here on the left side. So let's go ahead and work it together and see how we do this. So first we're going to work our 4 edge stitches. So we're going to purl 1, purl 2, then we have a knit 2 together, And now we need to work our double yarn over. So to do this, bring your yarn to the front and kind of over your right needle here. And then go ahead and slip your stitch marker onto this right needle. Bring the yarn to the back again and under your needle, and you're kind of wrapping around the stitch marker. And then you can let your yarn kind of just stay right here, and we're going to work the next stitch in the 6 stitch repeat. So that one yarn over here is the first one, then we're going to do an SSK. And you can see the yarn's kind of in the front here. I haven't finished this double yarn over yet, but when I knit this SSK together, that is going to finish my double yarn over. So I have purl 1, purl 2, knit 2 together, and I have my yarn over here, the first one, then I have my stitch marker, the second yarn over, and then my SSK. So we'll do it again here in a second. We're going to purl 1, purl 2, and then we're going to knit 2 together. And now let's do that double yarn over again. So bring your yarn under the right needle to the front here, slide your stitch marker, bring it under and up again, and then we're going to go right into our slip, slip, knit. And when we do that, we're finishing the second yarn over. So let's go ahead and look. We've got, in this first repeat we've got yarn over, SSK, purl 1, purl 2, knit 2 together, yarn over. So we've got our 6 stitches there, and now we've got our next yarn over right here, SSK, then we're going to purl 1, purl 2, work our knit 2 together, and do another double yarn over. So bring your yarn to the front, slip your stitch marker, wrap that yarn around the stitch marker, and go ahead and work your SSK. Here we go. So we've got first leg of the yarn over here, stitch marker, second leg of the yarn over. So now we need to purl 1, purl 2, knit 2 together, and do another double yarn over. Bring it to the front, slide your stitch marker, wrap it around the needle again, go right into that SSK, and purl 1, purl 2. Now we're going to knit 2 together. Oops, I got too much there. Knit 2 together, and then we're going to do that double yarn over one more time. The first one will be the end of our 6 stitch repeat. Then slide the stitch marker, and now we're going to work those last 4 stitches that aren't part of the 6 stitch repeat. So go ahead and wrap the yarn over again for the first yarn over on this side. And we're going to do an SSK. And purl 2. Alright, so that is how we're working our double yarn overs. We've got the stitch marker in between each loop that we wrapped. And now we'll go on to row 4 and look at how we actually work into those double yarn overs. So go ahead and flip your work. Alright, so again we're starting with our 4 stitches that aren't part of the 6 stitch repeat. And we're going to go ahead and knit the first 2 stitches, purl the next stitch, and now we have our first loop of the double yarn over. So go ahead, we're going to knit this leg. So you're just going in normally as you would. It looks a little strange, it feels a little loose, and it is, and that's fine. So you've knit that. Now we need to slip this stitch marker. We've got another leg here, and we're going to purl into it. So we purl 1, and then we purl this next stitch. We knit 1, knit 2, purl, and now we're back at the first of our double yarn overs here. And we're going to knit this stitch. So go ahead and knit in here, pull that first loop off, but don't pull them both off. Slide your stitch marker, bring your yarn around to purl, and purl the next leg of that double yarn over. And it's big. You're creating, the double yarn over creates a big hole. That feels weird, but it's correct. Purl this next one, knit 1, knit 2, purl 1, and then we're back at our double yarn over. We're going to knit the first leg, slip our stitch marker, bring the yarn to the front, purl the second loop, purl this next stitch, knit one, knit two, purl, knit the first loop, slide the stitch marker, bring the yarn to the front, purl this stitch, purl the next stitch, knit one, knit two, purl, knit the first leg of our double yarn over, slide the stitch marker, and we're on to our last 4 stitches of the row. We're going to purl, purl, knit, and knit. Alright, so those are the first 4 rows. And the good thing about this chart, even though it's an 8-row repeat, the first 4 rows and the second 4 rows all use the same stitches. They're just staggered a little bit. So we've got our double yarn overs here. Next time we'll be putting the double yarn over in between. So it's just the same pattern, just staggered. So you've done all of these stitches before. We're just going to do them in a slightly different order here. We are now on row 5. And the first thing we're going to do is work our 4 edge stitches, and it starts with a purl, and then we have a knit 2 together, and then we have a yarn over. And I'm going to, again, since I'm going from a knit to purling the next stitch, I'm going to bring it to the front, over, and back to the front. So I've wrapped around once, and then purl this next stitch. So I still have 4 stitches here on my edge. Slide my stitch marker, and then we're going to work our 6-stitch repeat. So it's purl, yarn over, so I'm bringing it to the back, around into the back again. Then we have swoop, slip, slip, knit, knit 2 together, and now we need to do a yarn over that's going to be followed by a purl, so I'm going to bring it to the front, over, and back to the front to purl. Slide my stitch marker, do it again. We'll do our 6-stitch repeat again. So purl, yarn over, slip, slip, knit 2 together through the back loop, knit 2 together, yarn over, and purl. Slip your stitch marker and do it again. So purl, yarn over, slip, slip, knit, knit 2 together, yarn over, and purl. Slide your stitch marker, purl 1, yarn over, slip, slip, knit, knit 2 together, yarn over, purl, slip your stitch marker, and we're on our last 4 stitches that aren't part of the repeat. So we're going to purl, yarn over, this one is a slip, slip, knit, and a purl. Alright, so that is row 5, and we're going to turn it over and do row 6. So we're going to start with a knit 1, back on my needle, purl 1, and then we're going to purl this next stitch, but again, this is one of those yarn overs where the back leg is in the front, so we're just going to go through the back leg to purl this one. Now you're going to knit, and that's your 4 edge stitches, and now we start our 6-stitch repeat. So slide your marker, knit the first stitch, then we purl 1, 2, 3, 4, and again this 4th one is one of our funny yarn overs, so you're going to go through the back leg and then knit 1. Slide your stitch marker and do it again. So knit 1, purl 1, 2, 3, and 4, the 4th one being one of the funny yarn overs, and knit 1. Slide your marker, knit 1, purl 1, 2, 2, 3, and 4, going through this back leg again. Knit 1, slide your stitch marker, knit 1, purl 1, 2, 3, 4 is your funny one, and knit 1, slide your stitch marker and work your last 4 stitches. Those aren't part of the repeat. Sorry, you're going to start with knit 1, purl 1, 2, and then knit that last one. So now we are on to row 7, which is another row that has your double yarn overs. This time, instead of placing them with the stitch markers in between them, they're going to go right here in between our 2 knit stitches on each one of our repeats. They're going to fall. You can see that our decreases we have a side of decreases that are slanting to the left and a side that are slanting to the right, and we're going to place the double increase right in between there. So that's a good visual as you're knitting along to make sure you're putting these double yarn overs in the right place, since we don't have the stitch markers in between them each time. So let's start this row. We're going to start with our 4 edge stitches. So we're going to purl, yarn over, slip, slip, knit, and then purl the next stitch. All right, now we're going to slide our stitch marker and start the repeat. So you're going to purl 1, knit 2 together, and now we're going to do our double yarn over, this time without the stitch marker in between it. So bring your yarn underneath, over the top, under and over again, and then we're going to work a slip, slip, knit. When you do this, it automatically brings your yarn back over and you have a knit stitch after, so you're good. You've got your knit 2 together here, 1 yarn over, 2 yarn overs, and your slip, slip, knit. And then we're going to purl 1. And that is the end of that 6 stitch repeat. You can see we've still got 6 stitches there, so slide your stitch marker and do it again. You're going to purl 1, knit 2 together, and we're right in between the 2 decrease lines here, so that's the right spot for our double yarn over. Bring your yarn under, over, under, and then when we do our slip, slip, knit, bring the yarn to the back to knit again. That'll finish our double yarn over. So again, we've got our knit 2 together, double yarn over, SSK, purl the next stitch, slip your stitch marker, and do it again. Purl 1, slip, slip, knit. We're in the right spot between these 2 decreases. Bring the yarn under and over and under, slip, slip, knit. And when you bring your yarn back to knit, you're finishing that double yarn over. Purl the next stitch, slide your stitch marker, purl 1, knit 2 together, do the double yarn over, slip, slip, knit, purl 1, and now we're done with our 6 stitch repeat, so we're going to do those 4 edge stitches. So you're going to purl 1, knit 2 together, yarn over, and purl 1. All right, so let's look at how we work into these double yarn overs when there's not a stitch marker in between them. And I saw somebody else mention in the class that if you're having trouble working into these double yarn overs with a stitch marker, just go ahead and throw another stitch marker in there. Maybe use a different color or a different shape to show that that's just marking your double yarn over, if that makes it easier for you. All right, let's do this last row of the repeat. So we're going to start with our edge stitch. So we'll knit 1, then we're going to purl 2, 1, 2, and knit 1. All right, so those are our 4 edge stitches. Now we're going to move our stitch marker and start doing their 6 stitch repeat that's in between the box. So we're going to knit 1, purl 1. Now we need to knit this first yarn over here, and we're going to leave this loop on the needle. So knit through, pull off just the first loop, leave that second loop there, bring your yarn to the front, purl it, purl your next stitch, and knit your next stitch. And you can see we still have 6 stitches here in our repeat, so we've worked 2 stitches in that double yarn over. Slide your stitch marker, knit the next stitch, purl. Now we're going to knit the first leg of our double yarn over, but leave the second yarn over on your needle. Pull it off, bring your yarn to the front, and purl into that second yarn over, purl the next stitch, and knit. And that is another repeat complete. Still have 6 stitches, so we're good to slide our stitch marker and do it again. You're going to knit, purl, knit into just the first loop, and you can see what happened there. I accidentally untwisted my double yarn over, so now I just have 1 yarn over on the needle. To fix that, just wrap it around again. So now I have 2. So let's see what happened there again. If I pulled this off, I would just have 1 big yarn over here, but I need 2 yarn overs. So just wrap that around your needle again so that you have the 2 loops to work into. So I'm going to knit the first leg, purl the second leg, and then purl my next stitch, and knit my next stitch. So let's just double check. We've got our 6 stitches there. Move the stitch marker, and we'll do it again. Knit, purl, knit the first leg of your yarn over, bring your yarn to the front, purl the next one, purl your next stitch, and knit the last stitch. We've got 6 stitches in this repeat. That's the last of our 6 stitch repeats, so now we're going to follow the 4 edge stitches. So we need to knit, purl 2, and I've got one of my backwards yarn overs here, so I'm going to knit through the back leg to make sure that stays a hole, and then knit that last stitch. And that is it. That is the full 8 rows of this lace repeat. So once you've completed this, you'll go back to row 1 and do it all again. Again, good things to keep in mind. You count your stitches in each repeat after you finish it to make sure. The things that people usually forget are their yarn overs, and especially being careful on those double yarn overs to make sure you're working 2 stitches, not just 1, into that yarn over.